because as you can see, I'm already recording. This week's cold opening is in the post-apocalypse, where the living Ned, who is not deceased after he was sent out and the comet hit the planet, has located Uncle Maude's family UFO cult, where Maude and the two boys are living as a family with all of Maude's UFO cult followers. And Ned turns up and Maude must decide whether to stay in the safety of the cult with Maude or to head off into the wilderness with the still living Ned. Would you like to be Maude, Ned, Maude?
I'll go for Maude.
I will be Maude and Ned. Okay, and action.
This is a lovely day, Maude.
Well, Maude, let's go say our prayers to the UFO and Space Jesus, because I want to get to that planet when I finally kick the bucket.
Yes, we must level up before we can leave this earthly plane.
For sure. Let me start up my race car. Let's go for a zip round our Formula One circuit. Who's that poking through the bushes?
It looks like, I don't know, he looks familiar. Looks like some guy.
Well, howdly doodly there, Mordelin and Dirty Mo. I want my wife back, not that she's a possession. I just want her love.
What?
You're my wife, and I want you to return and live with me in the wilderness.
But you died. I saw your face explode.
I thought we'd established in the last sketch that I didn't die.
I thought you were dead, but you weren't.
I'm not dead at all, Mordelin. Who's this ruffian that you're hanging around with? Well, don't call me a ruffian. I'm the bar owner and UFO cult owner.
Oh yeah, that's Mo. You remember Mo?
What, from
He's my world.
the Tavern Doodly Avon?
Yeah, we are leaving this planet for Glorigon 12 in about a week.
Right. So get your dirty rat pack out of here, you bloody hippie with your long hair and your big beard like Jesus. Like Jesus?
You do look like Jesus, actually, Neddy.
Well, now you come to diddly iddly think of it. Maybe I am Jesus. Maybe I am your UFO space cult Jesus come to save you. Are those my boys over there eating raw flesh?
Yeah, they're doing much better these days.
Well, why don't
They're
you
not
come with me and get in my spaceship and we can all go to Space Jesus?
Why do you have a spaceship?
To be continued. Maude, it's a Maude Fan Cast, Season 4. That's right, send us all to Maude. We're pretty certain that she's not a pharmacist, but maybe she works in a related field. Objectified by next door neighbor and bar owner. He'd be honored in a second. Mexican food lovers, burrito tacos, guacamole, unshakable and rewarded faith. Niece to Rex Turnbull. And star of her own podcast, Maudlin, Radamanthus, Jabibus, Lisa, Jukes, Stanley, Flanders. Season 4.
4. That wasn't much input, was it? This is all very exciting, this. Yeah, this is what I would refer to as a more intimate Maude season, because the clips we're looking at are all sort of not as sporadic as the earlier ones, where we would look at maybe 4 episodes. We're really looking at like basically half an episode for most of season 4 of our podcast. So it's very, it's like a deep dive.
It's a deep dive into Maude, mostly watching Maude sit still, stand motionless, magically change clothes, transport herself in the blink of an eye, but she doesn't blink.
Maybe she's a witch. Maybe she's a Marvel witch.
Maybe she is. A Witchfinder Scarlet.
Yeah.
And some of her costumes in today's episode might give that impression.
Perhaps.
Spoilers. No spoilers. So, hello, Goodman, Tinker, Turnbull, Morning, and not alive, Clem. Desist from chowing down on even a teensy bit of swine, my schoolmate. Brought to you by Ross Dibney's Multiplying Conger Eels. Possibly, that's unclear. All hail corporate imperialism. And now, possibly, by Jeff Apple's Sunderland. Sunderland includes the islands of Borneo, Sumatra, and Java, among others, as well as the peninsula of Malaysia. Most of the region remains forest. Remaining forest is on the island of Borneo, which is politically divided by Indonesia, Malaysia, and Brunei.
Sunderland.
Sunderland, I was surprised too. It's actually the third or fourth biggest rainforest on the planet.
I see. I just thought it was dirty.
It is a city in the northeast as well, but it's also a rainforest.
So is the Sunderland Maude database in the rainforest then?
Yes. Sunderland is a rainforest. You seem to be confused by this.
The northeast city of Sunderland.
Sunderland, yes. Sunderland is a rainforest. The fourth biggest in the world.
Yeah.
Sponsors: Xenakis, Karl-Heinz, Webern, and Berg. Sponsors: Jenny the Vixen in Spiral Carpets, Rolling Eyes Woman. Sponsor: Vivacious, RuPaul's Season 9 runner-up and back in the rankings. Sponsor: Jungle Rex's Triple Sock Blower Hot Sauce. And sponsor: King Louis XIV of France for all your fancy goods.
Give me two numbers between 1 and 30 for two bonus sponsors.
16, 28.
16, Log Lady. 28, Nando's.
Nando's. What do Nando's do?
I think they usually make predictions of the future based on what their chickens, the dead chickens, they cut the chickens in half and count the rings, and that tells them something.
Chicken predictions.
Yeah, and they do some spicy sauce.
Oh, ooh la la. How about this for a Jack Derrida quote? Oh, hold on. Is the glass moving again there on that Ouija board? Just check it out. Seems to be moving. Oh.
It is a bit.
It is. Jack, is that you? Is that you, Jack?
Hello, it's me. I rightly pass for an atheist.
That was nice. That was more I can't think of the word.
Not substantial, in fact, the opposite. It's insubstantial. I rightly pass as an atheist. How could that relate to your favourite lady?
She could never. I don't think she'd want to pass an atheist. I think that would redefine and restructure her entire means of life. So I don't think she has any interest in pretending to be an atheist.
But doesn't the ghost Maude come back and say that the life is an empty void?
Yes. Yes, she does. But that is something we're going to have to consider at the time, because we have seen her with God on multiple occasions. So I think she's just lying in that moment to keep Ned away from her for some reason.
God is dead.
God is dead. That's for another day.
Well, you're asking about my biography. Yes, I was the third of 5 children. My older brother, Paul, sadly died at less than 3 months old the year before I was born. And I suspect my role is a replacement for that of my deceased brother.
A nice light-hearted opening.
I spent my youth in Algiers and at El Biar. On the first day of school in 1942, the French administrators in Algeria implemented anti-Semitism quotas sent by the Vichy government, and I was expelled from my lycée, or middle school. I secretly skipped school for a year rather than attend the Jewish lycée formed by displaced teachers and students. I mostly took part in numerous football competitions because I dreamed of being a professional player.
That's very unusual. That Derrida, on the flip side of things, could have been a football player with the name Derrida on the back of his shirt. You would have meant a very different thing to the world. Oh. I'm glad you stuck with words, and I'm sorry about the Jew stuff.
Well, those bloody Nazis. I'm not a fan, let me tell you.
They're a bunch of wrong-uns.
I'm all for interpretation and deconstruction, but they're just bad uns.
There's a line in the sand, and they crossed it.
I'll tell you who else was a footballer. Albert Camus, Pope John Paul II, and that big fat opera fella, Pavarotti. all footballers, maybe all goalkeepers.
Pavarotti, especially, could have only been useful as a goalkeeper, really.
Because he was fat and he filled up the whole goal.
Yeah.
Moving. Oh, I'm fading.
Well, Jack's gone there. Seems like he had to make a quick exit for the door, but we found out a little bit more about his life. Seems like he had a bit of a wild and raucous upbringing. Give me a number between 1 and 300.
88.
I have to say, I particularly like the Paltrow bit in the last bit. And you know, just to be clear, we're not anti-Paltrow, but she leaves herself wide open for these kind of comedic attacks with her group.
If anything, I'm pro Paltrow.
Oh, I'm pro Paltrow. I have nothing, no grudges bird against Paltrow for anything she's done to members of Cult.
Oh, she is the
vaginal.
She's the Maude Flanders of the Marvel Universe.
She is the MC of the MCU, or MF.
Yes.
Number 88, Death, the family tombstone, the wish that the US magazine is in heaven, Us magazine is in heaven, foreshadowing.
They're both from different... We haven't got up to the tombstones yet, but that's going to be a big talking point. But yeah, we actually, 3 seasons before she dies, we see a gravestone that says Maude Flanders on it. Oh, that isn't the tombstone that they actually use. So I don't know what happened to this, because this was the only thing to survive the hurricane. But yeah, we always say this: death circles her, it surrounds her. She's talking about what magazine she wants to read in heaven. The next scene in that, I think I've talked about this before, but the next scene after that is Homer convincing Ned that all the family have been killed by just using like police tape across his door. And yeah, there's many. We're coming into, I'd say, maybe they knew a little bit, because there's some things in 10 and 11, I would say, that are quite telling. So I wonder when Roswell actually first asked about the money and they decided we're going to bin her off. I wonder how early that happened.
Maybe they were plotting for a long time before the demise.
Well, if we look at it as a narrative, where we're up to now, especially this episode we're going to look at today, I think this is the start of Roswell thinking, hang on, I'm doing a lot of work here. So I think maybe she summarised after season 8 or 9 and thought, I'm putting a lot of hours for this.
With all of my characters, I'm talking more than the Simpsons themselves.
Yeah, perhaps. Because this episode is not essentially, but Luann is one of the central characters, more than Helen and Maude have ever been.
Oh, yeah. And in that room at the beginning, like, all of the women except for Marge are played by Roswell.
Yeah, I think Bernice was Tress MacNeille.
Didn't know who did the voice. I just assumed Roswell was doing all of them.
No, just Bernice, but Bernice doesn't speak at all, which is, again, Maude isn't the bottom rung of the female characters ladder in this scene either, because Bernice is there.
In terms of the, what do we call it? The ladder, the grade, the Hollywood listings. How would you list those 4 ladies in terms of listings then? You got Luann, you got Maude, you got Helen, you got Bernice. What kind of listings are there? Marge is the other lady, and she's obviously a lister. A
triple plus. Maude, Helen, and Luann, I would put all in C.
Okay.
I'd bang them all together because they are like sort of interchangeable within scenes. Like, I think there was a point after season 11, Helen and Tim, out of these 3 couples, are the only couple still standing. Oh, no, Bernice and Hibbert as well. But yeah, I'd put Bernice D or E probably, because I don't think she's ever really... She's had like a couple of lines, but nothing... We don't know anything about her other than she's an alcoholic.
Really? She's a boozer?
She is. That's pretty much all they tell you about her.
But Dr. Hibbert, Dr. Julius Hibbert, has he had any leads?
Full episodes?
Yeah.
Surprisingly, no. Not to my knowledge. Whereas that feels like a character they would have. Because again, they started doing like Gil episodes and Kent Brockman episodes and Cletus.
One thing you got to realise, though, is he's clearly based on Bill Cosby. And just in the same way that Milhouse is clearly based on Woody Allen, those characters are... maybe there's a reason why they shied away from featuring too much Cosby and Allen.
Maybe, but Milhouse is still very prominent. And I think they go... It's a very subtle Cosby thing. It's not like they just throw him directly in the sweater.
He literally only ever wears that sweater, though. But yeah, he's got a little bit more to him, but he is very Cosby-esque, because originally the Simpsons were up against Cosby, right?
Yeah, there was something, because you see Bleeding Gums Murphy appears on the Cosby Show at some point on The Simpsons. And yeah, there was like a time rivalry.
Yeah. I mean,
Should have just waited it out.
Should have just waited it out until all of the allegations surfaced. Simpsons
Anyway,
thankfully clear of all that. This has turned out to be a somewhat dark episode.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any lighter, to be honest, as we go in.
For something that isn't directly about the death of anybody, yeah, this is a dark, more sad for the entire episode. Sad or uncomfortable.
Pretty much both of those things, but definitely very, very uncomfortable. Can you hear a kerfuffle going on just down in the old curry annex over there, the shut down curry annex?
Yeah, it sounds like I can hear a lot of splashing around.
Let me just go and peek my face in and see what's going on. Get your bloody hands off! Get your bloody hands off! This is mine! Oh, what do you mean? This is not your curry. This is my curry. What do you mean, you big bloody orange goofball? Put down this curry. I'm like to drink this curry because I think the curry is delicious, and I've been living here with all of the corpses of these flamball players for 10 years. You've not lived here. I live here for all my life, and I want to drink that curry. Bang. All right, I don't think we should get involved in that.
What's going on? Who was that?
It sounds like TV chef James Martin.
Didn't he die?
The last thing we heard that he drowned in the curry room and run away, but it seems like he's back. Whether he's alive or as a ghost, it's hard to say. And remember, we let Stamp stay in there as a reward for letting Jeff Apple buy us.
Yes.
Who's on the way currently? He's decided to bike it over from Sunderland, so he'll arrive sometime relatively soon. But it seems like Stamp and James Martin have not hit it off. They seem to now, I can just see through the window, they seem to be brawling in the remnants of the curry.
They look very, like that's not going to come out of the skin easily. Very stained.
Well, Martin seems stained from head to toe.
Yeah, he looks like that tango man from the early 2000s who would slap people.
He looks just like that tango man from the early 2000s, what slapped people.
The one who incited all the happy slapping.
Happy slapper inciting James Martin ghost.
Yeah. Yes.
I hope he doesn't get into any happy slapping with Stamp, because Stamp's not a man who will put up with that nonsense, though he is now very, very poor, so I don't think he has much of a choice.
No, he has nowhere else to go.
Well, I can only see how that can only work out well for all of us.
It can't go, I don't know, it can't go wrong. Can't
go pear-shaped. It's definitely going to stay apple shape or banana shape. Shall we start?
Shall
we get into the content of today's show?
We should, yes. We shall.
Do you want to give these people a bit of context?
The Simpsons have decided to host a dinner party. I would say, again, yeah, this is our most closed setting for Maude. It's very few characters. He's not 100% a background character, but she's not leading the charge. It's just this group of people for both scenes, so it's quite an intimate setting.
Yeah. So clip one, dinner party at the Simpsons house. We've got the Hibbets, the Flanders, Maude wearing this saucy kind of purple high-necked dress style thing. The Van Houtens are there, the Lovejoys are there. We get a classic side of the Maude shot. Maude now in a red top and dark maroon skirt. There's lots of chatter. And Marge says, did anyone see that Woodsy Allen movie? Cut to Ned, Maude and Helen. Maude looking very cutesy, doing little chews with her mouth. And just wearing some kind of Vampirella kind of get up now. Again, just switched back to the purple dress in the blink of an eye. I really don't know what's going on there. Ned says, I like all his films except for that nervous fella. On the plate, looks like there's lasagna and some grey and brown slop. I'm going to stop there because there's much more.
This is one of the best episodes ever. It's in my top 5. It's just, I would say, funny from start to finish, and there's a nice story. And it's a Roswell-centric episode, so it ticks every box for Nathan. Another costume change, which is what I said. We haven't really got a way around this. All she did last week was rip off a cardigan. This week she has entirely changed what she's wearing twice. Don't know how she's doing it. Don't know why, because nobody else does. And purple is royalty is the other note about what she's wearing. Is she making a point here? Is she trying to look regal in front of these people?
Royalty.
She also seems not that interested in what Ned's saying, and she stops mid-chew. Like, she almost can't believe what Ned's just said. Like, disbelief, like, are you serious? Come on, you know that's Woody Allen, right?
But also, like, she wouldn't be a fan of Woody Allen's movies, right? They're all kind of like, you know, people having affairs and being sarcastic and rude and basically everything that Maude's not.
Yeah, she's not a Woody Allen fan. Even before the whole daughter marriage, I don't think she was a Woody Allen fan.
Got worse than that. I don't even follow the Woody Allen news for the last decade, but kind of got worse than that.
Yeah, he...
Anyhow, moving on once again from the darkness that seems to be just attracting us at every turn today. Yeah, there's no explanation. Does magic exist in the Simpsons universe?
At this point, no, I would say, but the later we get, the more it does. Maybe this whole thing is like a Maude's WandaVision set up, and she's the Catherine Hahn of it all.
She's the Agatha Harkness of this whole thing. It would be a very long, drawn-out way to do such a thing, and with far less clarity than the rather excellent WandaVision series.
However, she is wearing purple.
Not scarlet, though. But yeah, Harkness wears purple in the movie, right? Spoilers if you've not seen it.
But it was excellent.
It was excellent, great. And did you ever see that comic based on Vision, a few years old, where Vision essentially does something really quite similar? He basically creates a family and moves into a suburban kind of house, but it's in a suburban place where it's kind of the real world. So basically, it's what would happen if Vision decided he wanted to be normal and moved into your neighborhood with his Vision wife and Vision son and daughter.
Yeah, I heard about the House of M1, which is sort of basically the same thing with Wanda, isn't it? Where she makes a world without mutants, where Magneto is like the king. And both of those ideas to me sound cool on paper, but when you think about it, it's just, what if these superheroes had a normal life where nothing went wrong and they had no powers? Maude would be into that.
Maude would be into that, but that would just be normal people, wouldn't it? You got a lot of those things like The Watchmen, and now, what is it, The Boys on Amazon, where, you know, and even the MCU playing around with those kind of ideas of superheroes in the real world. But the Vision comic is great, House of M is great, and Magneto is, in the comics, the Scarlet Witch's father, but of course that's not popped up in the MCU yet. Don't know if it will.
Not yet.
No.
Gandalf.
Well, he's Gandalf, and he's also from Wigan.
He is. Him and the woman from Hearsay.
Exactly. Luann says, you know, if you want to talk nervous, you should have seen Kirk deal with the high school boys who egged our Bonneville, some kind of car. Millhouse, who is basically Woody Allen. Kirk is, Millhouse is not there. I don't know why I wrote that. Kirk also has a kind of Woody Allen look, but he's the dad. And Luann is smiling at her own wit of bringing down Kirk, because it could have been played where he was kind of the real bad guy, and he does come off worse, but she's by no means innocent in this whole back and forth.
No, you can see just from this short exchange that they're exhausted with each other. Like, I don't think we've seen this at all before this. They were just like a couple akin to Tim and Ellen and Ned and Maude, just less religious, but they never had any sort of issues before this, I don't think.
I wonder what the trope is where they suddenly, a character or group suddenly, something major happens to them that suggested that it's always been there, but you've just never seen it.
Well, there's a couple of things around this time where you can see they started either wanting to or subconsciously making permanent changes, like Lisa becoming a vegetarian. This now, Kirk and Luann splitting up is the biggest change at this point on the show.
Okay.
But even with Mr. Burns, when Mr. Burns got shot, they were talking about, there's a point where they were talking about it being Barney who shot him, and Barney actually just going to jail and just leaving the show. So they're talking about, and then obviously Maude dies, so I think they wanted to kill off the character permanently. Like, it seems like they want to make some statements about things, you know, maybe maybe things will change.
Maybe it's a character development. They had a choice at this point. Do we develop these characters? Or do
I
we
believe they just
essentially repeat? Do we just essentially get them repeating what happened over and over again?
I believe they wanted to have a couple split up, and they settled on Kirk and Luann naturally out of the couples that were available, basically. They made the most sense. It's a Millhouse sort of story as well because of this. And it wouldn't have been a particularly riveting episode if it was Jessica Lovejoy or the Hibbert's unnamed children that were sort of going through it. So,
what about Rod and Todd? What if they'd flipped it and somehow Ned and Maude had gone through this? We know they already went through counselling, but that was a bit of a fake, wasn't it? But what if this had been the curveball that they would have split up?
that would have been shocking, but I think Rod and Todd are very good at just getting on with things because God has a plan. Again, we'll come back to that as one of the reasons they actually chose to kill Maude later in the day. In about a year and a half, we'll come back to that point.
That it was all fate?
Or that they're the best kids to put trauma on because of the faith in God.
Yeah, so they keep putting them through the ringer, don't they? And they and see, and then in that comic one, that Bongo one, where they essentially were celebrating that Mommy had gone to Jesus or whatever.
Yeah, some weird stuff.
So Kirk shouts, "We should have asked them to hurl some bacon as well as the eggs. I could have had a decent breakfast for once." The Hibberts realize that this has turned very sour, and Dr. Hibbert just looks down and kind of grumbles. And then we get a very Thatcher-esque Maude, who is eating some form of lasagna / tiramisu, and she kind of looks away. We get a really good shot of Maude actually looking a lot like Thatcher, and turns her head away, puts her head down, and there's crickets, and the Van Houtens glare at each other.
Yeah, fantastic. She looks really sad, the most sad we've probably ever seen her at anything. And I think it's just because I don't think she likes Luann, but she isn't invested in Kirk and Luann. I just don't think she likes conflict because she prefers to do things sneakily, whereas this is just the being passive-aggressive, but there's obviously aggression there.
It's not very hidden, that it's not that passive.
The things they're saying, though, are very, they're not direct insults.
No, it's super passive-aggressive. It's super... It's very funny. I mean, do we see much more of this after this episode? Do we see much more of this acerbic Kirk in future episodes?
Yeah, this is, from this point on, Kirk definitely jumps up a band after this episode in terms of, I'd say he went from a C to probably a B.
Okay.
Because of this episode.
B-lister? I don't know about that.
The later the show gets, again, Millhouse plays a bigger role, but Kirk also plays, I don't know, he's around a lot, and he has had an episode or two at this point as well.
Nice. I wait in anticipation of the inevitable Kirk Van Houten cast.
And they went back on this, by the way. I'm just going to throw that out there now. They got remarried in about season 20.
Okay. Yeah, you would want to do that, right? That would be a good way to wring out a couple more episodes from this.
Sure.
The Van Houtens glare at each other, and Homer shouts, "You know what you guys need? A little comic strip called Love Is. It's about two naked 8-year-olds who are married." I wrote WTF. What? I do know the comic strip is very funny, but for Homer to bring it up and frame it in that way is, well, obviously it's silly, and that's why this comedy show decided to do it.
Why is he pushing it? It is a very weird moment. What is it that he thinks this will help, or is he promoting it? Why does he think this comic is exactly what they need? It just goes to show that Homer is, again, this episode is just about Homer and Marge, deep down. So I think it's just setting up how naive and unaware of problems Homer is. But yeah, very strange thing to say. And Maude's look, well, everybody's look reflects that.
So I took a screenshot of Maude's look at this because she's got kind of like a baby bird face. Do you know what Raj went out with that woman on The Big Bang Theory? Do you know that one?
Don't think so.
Got a little baby bird kind of face going on, and this is what I see here in Maude. It's kind of very pinched, little tiny face, and her eyes doesn't have the blue eyeshadow, so it's just these kind of big white, what's that white part called in your eyes?
Eyeball?
The bit around your eyeball. This bit here, the white bit that's not my iris. Oh no, your eyeball's the whole thing, right? Does it have a name for the white?
I don't know. No. It's never been named.
Is it just called the whites of your eyes, like the whites of the egg?
Yeah. Yolk.
That's what Michael Caine says. Don't shoot till you see the whites of their eyes.
Exactly.
We zoom out, we see Maude's face, the baby bird lass from Big Bang Theory, now wearing the full-length purple dress. I ask, when did she get changed? Drinking tea delightfully, and Kirk is smoking, which wouldn't fly in 2021, I'm sure.
Yeah, I made all of those points as well. I thought it was a cigar, possibly like an end of meal celebration, but it's weird. Out of those people, I would place Hibbert with a cigar the most, not Kirk. But Hibbert's probably more polite. Kirk, at this point, clearly has self-awareness issues. So I think he's just lit it up without... He's a bit similar to... He's like a slightly older Fry from Futurama, or he's a slightly less pathetic Gil, because he's... If Kirk's on screen after this point, it's because he's failing at something.
Is he not Costanza? He's got a lot of Costanza about him.
Yeah, I think Costanza's a bit more self-aware, though. I think he's more tapped into what's going on in the world, whereas Kirk's more pathetic, definitely.
See, the back and forth between Luann and Kirk reminded me of the jerk store bit from Seinfeld. Do you know that one where he says, hey, George, the ocean called. Are they running out of shrimp? And then George, the jerk store called. They're running out of you. And the guy retorts back, well, what do they care? You're their biggest seller. And then George makes some incredibly offensive comment about the man's wife, I think.
Excellent. No, there's not a lot of Seinfeld stuff in The Simpsons, so that's a nice... Probably just capturing the essence rather than a direct reference.
The zeitgeist. Well,
yeah.
This would have been...
Seinfeld will have ended.
Yeah.
Seinfeld ended in 99.
Something like that. Was it maybe a bit early?
Really? I thought it was earlier, but I don't actually know. It was like 10, 11 seasons, wasn't it?
9 seasons. Seinfeld finale was in 1998.
This is probably 97, I think.
All right. So at that point, Seinfeld was basically the biggest show on American TV, up there with The Simpsons.
So that's weird that they didn't do more. Seinfeld, none of the 4 Seinfeld cast have ever been on The Simpsons either, I don't think, which is rare for a full cast. Makes sense for Seinfeld himself, but... Oh, no, sorry. Julia Louis-Dreyfus has played a cop several times called Gloria.
Well, here we go. If I go to the Simpsons wiki, breaking all the rules of podcasting, you can't just go on a website in the middle of a podcast. Apparently in season 6, A Star is Born, Patty and Selma suggest changing Springfield's name to Seinfeld to thus attract more visitors. The soundtrack then mimics the show's opening theme.
I remember that. That's basically the only thing, and then possibly something with Wolfcastle stood in front of... Oh, no, Skinner, doing like a Seinfeld thing.
Odd gag in season 9, which Bart says, I was not the inspiration for Kramer. The Seinfeld theme song plays after Seymour Skinner's comedy sketch in the Bart Wants What It Wants.
I remember that.
Marge drunkenly calls Homer Seinfeld after he makes a joke in season 15. When Homer Simpson and Ned Flanders' cars turned into Transformers while they were in them, Ned asked Homer what he got for Christmas, and Homer said he got Seinfeld season 7.
Weird.
Krusty the Clown mentions Newman from Seinfeld in Clown in the Dumps. And Lolo the Gorilla in Gorillas in the Mist makes the sign language for Seinfeld. And then Lisa puts Seinfeld on to make him calm down.
Nice. So there's more than I thought. More of them are late than when both of these shows were at the height of their popularity.
They're both great TV shows.
Yes. My last note about this clip. Oh no, 3 more notes.
Yeah.
She's got giant pupils when she's got that bird face.
Yes.
Like really big pupils. Ned is the only one showing any affection in this scene. He's got his arm draped over the back of Maude's chair. Nobody else is doing anything like that. And is it tea or coffee they are drinking? Because I'd imagine coffee would be an after meal thing, but it does look like tea. Looks like they've got a teapot.
I think so.
And I think they probably, I don't know, if tea's a bit fancier to Americans, isn't it?
Yeah.
So maybe it was tea.
I think Maude and Ned are the most loving in this whole little bottle episode scene.
Definitely.
Give me a moment.
Yes.
Hurting hands need some healing. With my glove, with your glove, my glove. Can you spare me a feeling? Do we get to that in this episode at all?
Nope.
That's too bad. One of my favourite Simpsons songs.
Well, I'll throw this in as a teaser though. When he starts singing that song, there are only 2 characters in shot. and they are Kirk and who?
Can't be Maude, otherwise it'd be in the show.
It is Maude. This is a two-parter.
Oh,
This is only the first half of this episode.
my goodness. Should we get on to
Yes.
clip 2?
Yes.
Well, that was like 45 minutes in.
Yeah, that was a long time. Clip 1 was a long clip, though.
Ned gets a card and they're playing Pictionary, and Ned says, "Oh, that's a noodle scratcher." We get a side of the Maude view, very ducky, possibly with no nose. My dog's got no nose. My Maude's got no nose. How does she smell? Delightful.
Exactly.
So Ned draws 5 dots on the Pictionary board, and immediately Maude shouts cornstarch, and she's got her arms stretched out and she points at Neddy, and she stands up, gives him a peck on the cheek and puts her hands on him, lays both hands on him. Very, very affectionate in this episode. And Ned smiles and says, "Good for keeping the urges down." And yeah, that's
The
it.
giggle.
The giggle.
Cutest clip to date, question mark, is my first. I think this is the sweetest we've ever seen them. Outside of the first time we ever saw them when she comes down with the sandwiches and they're a little bit like cutie. Both times, though, are a reminder, or just sort of, it's there as an example that they are a good couple to reflect badly on a different couple. First time it was Homer and Marge, and then this time it's obviously to parallel Kirk and Luann, because Ned and Maude are just working in tandem here completely. This is them at their most solid. I think after seeing Kirk and Luann this evening arguing, she's probably like appreciating Ned more or feeling more grateful for what she's got.
I think it's one of those things, she's doubling down. She knows that bad stuff is happening there, and she just wants to doubly support Ned. But to be honest, that's almost mind reading to get cornstarch from 5 dots. You know, Maude is displaying some seriously magical abilities here. We've seen her move things with her mind, change her clothes, and read minds.
I would speculate that they play this game a lot. So this is sort of like when that couple went on Millionaire and coughed. Like, they've both done this before, and they're, again, probably just showing off. Like, look how like in tandem we are. I have a question, though, about the kids. Do you think Luann and Kirk look at Rod and Todd as losers? And do you think Maude and Ned look at Milhouse as a loser? And who is the biggest? Which of those 3 are more viewed as weird or a loser to the others?
I think the nature of it is that they almost certainly all view each other's children as either really naughty, losers, or weird. Given the characters, they're not entirely wrong.
Yes. Given the choice, I think most people would pick to have Milhouse as their kid as opposed to Rod and Todd.
I don't know. Milhouse
I
is
think Milhouse.
tiny and needy and annoying, and so are Rod and Todd, but he's also super weird as well.
That's true. Rod and Todd are very obedient as well, but so they're probably easier to keep a handle on. But I don't know. I'd take Milhouse out of the option.
If you gave me a choice between Rod, Bard, and Milhouse as a child to take, I don't know. They've all got their charms, and by take I don't mean steal or kidnap. I simply mean to adopt legally, and therefore, as if they were my own child.
If Milhouse had been fostered and baptised, I think he would have settled in a lot better at the Flanders house than Rod and Todd, than Bart and Lisa. Ka-ching.
Jinx.
Yes. Yeah, that was pretty much it for that clip, other than when he says keeping down the urges, they both seem to chuckle. So is this like an inside joke or something, or are they actually being real?
I don't even know where they're coming from. Cornstarch to keep down the urges. It's just like, I'm not sure what that would be.
I don't even know what cornstarch is, to be honest.
Isn't it the non-Newtonian stuff? So the cornstarch one, when you make a mixture of cornstarch and a bit of water, it's the one that turns into, like, if you press it, it's like a solid. Like if you touch it lightly, it's like a solid, but you can push into it and it becomes almost like a liquid.
I see.
And they call it non-Newtonian because its viscosity depends on how much force you apply to it.
Exactly.
Such as quicksand, silly putty, and ketchup are all other examples of non-Newtonian fluids.
Excellent. Good trivia.
Oh, that's not trivia. That's scientific fact. Clip 3. I don't know what it is, shouts Luann as Kirk is attempting to draw dignity. And we see Maude clasping her hands, looking very concerned as Luann shouts, I don't know what it is. And Kirk, losing it, grabs the pad and storms over to her and shouts, "It could not be more simple, Luann." At this point, Maude is sitting on, I think, the piano kind of bench thing with Ned, and she's still looking at them with sad eyes and hands clasped, but she hasn't completely moved herself away yet.
I've noted that it is Ned and Maude. It makes sense that Ned and Maude were relegated to like the backup furniture of everybody. They would be the ones to say like, "Oh, we'll sit on this. You all take the comfortable stuff."
I insist.
She looks in genuine shock or like fearful that it's all going to kick off. And Ned's like clasping her wrist. But it seems like, I'm assuming it's for comfort, but it does look like he's doing it in like, "Don't you get involved." You know, like stopping her from jumping up and doing something. But I don't think that is the case.
I didn't get that vibe. I got more of like he was almost like shielding her from this madness. As he gets further on, at this point, he's basically just reaching over, touching her hand, and then he moves back again. But as it gets further on, we see Maude, just the slight little actions that tell so much about how she's feeling.
Yes.
Oh.
But before Clipball, let's just celebrate that Maude had a line this week.
She had a line, she moved, and that's probably the first time in several episodes that we've seen Maude do, even in some episodes she doesn't even blink. She's literally just stationary.
This is the 4th episode of season 4 of our podcast, and this is the first line she's had. And she doesn't have another line now for a bit.
She doesn't need to speak. Her actions and her lack of actions speak volumes. Clip 4. Kirk shouts, "Okay, genius, why don't you draw dignity?" And Luann is very angered. And in basically 3 strokes of the pen, she draws something. And Maude is sitting there very despondently with sad eyes, like a sad-eyed lady. And she slightly raises her head to Luann, like, go on, do it. Is it support? Is it just like, let's get this over with? I don't know. And everyone agrees that Luann has clearly drawn dignity. And Hibbert says that's worthy of Webster's. We don't see Maude's reaction, and we don't, unfortunately, see Luann's picture. Although I've seen this thing going around, I think on Instagram and stuff, that it is a picture that looks like it's something to do with Kirk. It's something to do with Milhouse or Kirk Van Houten. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like
the circle.
Yeah, it's like a circle, right?
I think that is Kirk's drawing of dignity.
Oh,
it's something relevant to this Pictionary game, but I don't know why. I can't remember because I've seen this episode.
Drawing of dignity. We just don't see it in
this, yeah.
This, but yeah, it's basically like a hourglass shape with like a triangle cut into it, like lines scribbled across the bottom, and that was that's the funniest part for me, where he is drawn this dignity, this abstract dignity, but we don't see it. We don't see Leanne. We see that. We don't see Luann's version of dignity.
We also missed my favorite line from Kirk, which is when after he says it could not be more simple, Luann, he says, "Do you want me to show it to the cat and let the cat tell you what it is, because the cat's going to get it."
So much goodness there from Kirk and co.
Yeah. I can hear Maude saying "that's great" when they're all.
Oh, really?
Like actually hear her. Before Hibbert says "worthy of Webster's," you can hear it's Roswell, but it's Roswell as Maude. You can tell that it's Roswell as Maude saying "that's great." So that was a nice treat.
Yeah,
but you don't get to see her response. Again, I've written that she looks regal in her posture, which fits with the colouring again, the purple. And she looks at Luann with sorrow and empathy, and I presume that she likes Luann.
Yeah, do we see much of that? Do we get much more interaction between the two of them?
Not directly, but subtext for season 8 will allow it, because they're in the same group and stuff. They spend time together.
Is she an investorette?
Yeah, Luann's an investorette, and from what I can remember, Luann is the only investorette to go to Maude's funeral. So yeah, we'll come back to Luann.
What are the trophies in the Simpsons house? He seems to have a bunch of trophies. Do we know what he won those for?
No, I assume the leases.
Yeah, makes sense.
They probably just put them out to show off.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Clip 5. Kirk goes on to start shouting about how he carries a change purse. We get a three-quarter back of the Maude shot, stunned into a usual position of silence, and more crickets, and then he shouts, yeah, purse. And then Homer shouts, shut up and let the woman talk, which is funny, but I don't know why it's funny.
I've read Homer's, I've listened to the commentary for this recently as well, because there's nothing else to do. And it's definitely one of Homer's finest episodes, because they've said when you can have Homer not be the main character in a scene and you can sit back and just comment on things, it is very funny. Just having him shout Homer things. He does a couple of things, like he keeps interrupting them to tell them to carry on. Like this, shut up and let the woman talk. And then he says something about the dignity picture as well. And then obviously at the end, we'll come back to another great Homer line shortly. Where did the Hibberts go as well? They seem to have completely vanished off the couch.
Really?
I just see the Lovejoys on the couch now. Maude is still regal looking, and this is sort of semi-related, but not. But there's a few great things in this scene where they come up with fake names for stuff. Like Luann says, I'm not as smart as you, Kirk. We didn't all go to Goodyear College. And then she names like 3 biscuit companies. They mention like 3 fake cracker companies, but they've all got really bland names like Allied Biscuit.
Right.
I just like those sort of like fake names that sound real.
Yeah, Marge, ka-ching, Marge is pouring some biscuits away. I didn't get the relevance of that. But
yeah, Kirk works at a cracker factory, and it turns out he sent them into a tie for like 3rd with Table Time and Allied Biscuit. Oh, that was it, sorry. Homer also, Luann says, sort of a simple man who took over his father's cracker factory, and Homer just shouts, boring. And then Luann says, a man whose lack of something and managerial impotence, and then Homer shouts, oh, here we go. He's just, throughout the scene, he's fantastic.
He's just peppering it with Homerisms. Good work.
That's it for that clip.
Clip 6. You want to hear a secret? Shouts Kirk. Luann loves it when I fail. Maude now has physically turned herself away on the piano seat. And Ned has his hands on her shoulders. And Luann comes back with, I love having to borrow money from my sister, and I love stealing clothes from the church donation box. Lovejoy puts his head in his hands. Marge is on full-on grumble, not knowing what to do more, and she pulls Lisa out. Why don't you come and sing for us? Ned is basically shielding Maude with his arms, and she has turned 180 degrees away. I'm not sure what people thought of that. What does that say about Maude? Everybody else just continued sitting there, but she physically moved her entire body away. She didn't get up and walk away. Marge calls out Lisa to sing. Lisa, why don't you come out and sing? She sings, oh, something grand old, something, something. And Kirk shouts, oh, you got the kids singing now. Are you happy? And Luann says, I haven't been happy for a long time. Arms folded. I want a divorce. And Kirk is stunned. He says, a divorce? Maude still fully turned away and basically trying to turn her head and body away. A divorce? Hey, you got it, Toots, shouts Kirk. He's clearly not happy about this, but here's a picture even you can work out. It's a door and you can use it. And Homer shouts, is that the door? Maude does not find any of this funny.
No. Yeah, I said that she turned her back in shame, like she's ashamed of what's happening. It explains why Rod and Todd are a little bit frightened of everything as well, because this is like Ned is very instantly just protective. He's not, which is nice, but you know, she needs to grow up a little bit. If she can't handle this, then she's not prepared for the world. If she can't handle this, how's she going to handle a barrage of t-shirts? And is she just sad? Is she sad for Luann in general, or just because there's conflict going on?
There's a whole bunch of great questions, and sadly, we can only conjecture on what the answers are.
I think that she's both. She's sad for her friend Luann, but she's also just sad because she's having to. Because again, conflict in the town hall, she's one of like 100. There's only like 8 people in this room. So she is basically trying to put herself in the background. If there was somebody that she could stand directly behind, she would do that instead. But that would be too much moving. So this is the closest you can get to not being a part of things.
Yeah, without actually standing up and walking away, which would be a bigger statement than she would really want to make.
Yeah, the attention would turn to her then. Lisa coming in just instantly ready with that song really makes me laugh as well. And Maude sort of looks internally annoyed when Marge suggests that Lisa come in and sing. Like, she looks like she's, oh, here we go, which Kirk expresses. But good use of Lisa. Lisa doesn't get many chances to just be the funny one. And Homer saying that's a door. Again, just continuing his great scene. One of his finest hours.
All in all, that is only a few minutes of screen time, but is splendid.
I also want to note now, I only sort of thought about this recently, but Ned and Maude and Tim and Helen, they're both Harry Shearer and Maggie Roswell. So it's fun to see how they are completely different with their relationships and the way they speak to each other. But it's the same two people. I thought Kirk and Luann as well, but Kirk is Azaria.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is too bad. I don't think we saw a lot of this interaction between the 2 or 3 couples, and what happens when, let's imagine if that had been, the core of the show, where you had these 3 or 4 couples interacting. That would have been a very interesting and different dynamic.
I like stuff like this when they do, I don't know, not as necessarily focused on the kids or just on Homer or Marge. Like Homer and Marge as a couple doing coupley things. Because again, you get to see some of the other couples then. Clancy and Sarah didn't make the list. That's pretty much the only couple I can think of. Because again, there aren't that many. That's why they settled on Kirk and Luann, I think. Skinner and Edna aren't together at this point.
Martin's popped up a few times.
Comic book guy is years away from meeting Kumiko, no Manjula, so Apu is single. So yeah, there's not a lot of...
His wife, no Betty.
No. Krusty, single. Sideshow Mel has a wife, but, they're not going to be inviting. These 3 couples and then Sideshow Mel and his wife, I would have enjoyed very much, but it would have been a weird thing to do.
A weird dynamic. So how are we doing there? Are we done with the clips for this week?
Yeah, all good. I think that's...
Because I can see someone just coming down the drive on his moped. I think it's Jeff Apple who's arrived, our new owner.
Oh, excellent.
Hey, boys. Nice.
And who?
Hi, we already met.
We never met in person before, did we, my little sharpshooter? What's your name?
Nathan.
Nathan O'Leary. Pleasure to meet you, Nathan.
Thanks, you too.
And who's your brother over there?
Kieran.
Standing silently and just looking and not moving.
Kieran. Oh, yes, Brendan.
Oh, that's the one. Now, I hear we got a whole bunch of burned down buildings we gotta be restoring. So I got a card here with a bunch of monkeys' numbers on it. Let's say we hire 666 monkeys and get these buildings back to where they're supposed to be.
Let's do it. I think we should order double that many.
1,236 monkeys it is.
Yes, to just account for some of them are going to kill each other.
Oh, monkey fights are inevitable when you set them off on construction. So let's get it started, shall we? You start with the A's, Arthur Alexander Chimp, and I'll start with the B's, Banana Big Bar Chimp.
Let's do it. Let's get this over with.
Am I right in thinking that we're going to have to live in this trolley?
Yeah, unless you can do something about it, yeah.
Oh, it's going to be bloody effing cold in the winters.
We've got one of those things that you put over the front of cars to stop them frosting.
A car sock.
Tin foil.
Info car sock. Well, I tell you what, let's all snuggle down for the night in the shopping trolley with a blanket and a car sock. And in the morning, we'll wake up bright and early and get them monkeys rebuilding the broadcast centers. All right, good night.
Right. Just going to roll the trolley away for a bit.
Was that Jeff Apple?
Yeah, I think so. I wasn't really listening to him.
Yeah, he sounded like he was talking a bit of guff and chuff and nonsense. Listen, time's getting beyond us. Have we got a page of the Maude diary that we can hit up before we finish?
We do. Here it is.
Alrighty.
Dear Diary, today was a lovely day. It was the wedding of Kirk Van Houten to Luann de Beaumarchais, and it was beautiful. At first, when Ned introduced me to them today, because I'd never met them before, because of reasons I can't get into now, I thought they were brother and sister, but apparently they're just unrelated completely, and it's a coincidence, a bit like the Goldmans from Family Guy and some other couples from other TV shows that look exactly the same, such as... There is another one. where they just look, I can't remember, it's like South Park or something. But yeah, anyway, the wedding was really nice. Luann looked beautiful. We went to the after party and I had a couple of glasses of champagne and I just felt awful. I felt off my head. Felt wazzed. And then I went into the toilet and someone offered me a little paper bag of just like sugar. But I was like, no sugar. No sugar for me. But they talked me into it anyway. And I just felt awful. Ned said I ran around screaming, I am the Antichrist, for about 45 minutes outside until Kirk's dad asked me to stop. So we're home now and I'm under a blanket, one of those things that you put on the front of cars, and just recovering. So from now on, no alcohol and no sugar forever. Bye.
Once again, what began as a relatively straightforward account turned off into Despairville, with Maude looking like she was all hopped up on Bolivian marching powder, running around, or methamphetamines and running around the wedding party. And quite a long diversion into her trying to think of couples from TV shows that looked the same, including TV shows that were clearly several decades after the writing of that piece, unless of course they got married then later, but then that wouldn't make any sense because she said she didn't know them.
And she was dead when they got remarried.
All of those go against the remarrying theory.
Yeah, it must have been earlier on.
Very prescient. This is so she can see the future, she can teleport, she can magically change her clothes, she can read people's minds, and she can move things with her mind, are all things we've suggested that Maude either believes she can do or can actually do.
Maybe, again, storyline going forwards. At this point, she knows that she can manipulate her clothes and that she can teleport small distances. But I don't think she knows she can tell the future in these diaries. I think she, like, what's his face? I was going to say Nosferatu then, the other one, Nostradamus.
Nosferatu, the fortune-telling vampire
dancer.
Private dancer.
Yeah, maybe she's like, the things that she writes just come to pass eventually, rather than her actively predicting the future. And I don't think she can read minds quite yet.
Well, who knows? So the thing is that we don't want to completely jump that shark, but it does seem like all things point to her having all of these weirdly magical powers that she seems to use just sneakily, like in the TV show Bewitched, where you know mostly you don't know she's got powers, and she just moves the odd glass, like in the first episode of that WandaVision thing.
Yeah, she would fit very well into that character as well. I think. I've never seen Bewitched, though, so that was a bit of a jump.
You watch the first episode of WandaVision, it's literally the same thing.
Gone, whatever I was going to say.
Maybe
something a bit more.
Maybe you just needed a long pause. Maybe this podcast just needs a pause.
Have a moment to yourself. Think about Maude.
A maudement of silence.
Yes, I can hear wind chimes outside.
Can you?
Which is nice.
We're getting around to that time of year. It's almost been a full calendar year since we started the Maudecast, and the birds are going to be coming back out again.
They're already starting. I can hear the tweeting already, which again fits into Maude's thing a bit more. Oh, that was my point. She can't. I think somebody will figure this out and realise that they have to stop her, and it seems like they do. Whether that's
secret plot,
some woman.
Maybe there was more to those T-shirts than we actually knew.
Exactly.
So yeah. I think that's all we've got time for. Unless you want to say something else, I think it's time for us to wrap up with a song.
No, that's it. Next week is Bongo. And then the week after is part 2 of this.
Wow, well, that means we're already halfway through season 4 almost.
Yeah, and we've only covered 3 episodes.
I like the fact that we're slowing down. Each episode covers half as much Maude as the last one.
Yeah, she's just everywhere for season 8. This episode, she's only got 1 line. These first 3 episodes, she's only had 1 line, but she's sort of just been everywhere.
She's led us to see Springfield through the ears and eyes of someone who is an observer. She's a participant. She's never really there. She's the spirit of the age.
She is. She will be. She will have her time.
And then her time will pass. Who's going first?
You.
Dinner party at the Simpsons.
Kirk Van Houten's finest hour.
Woodsy Allen movie.
Hibbert looks like he's just received awful news and is contemplating it.
Lasagna and Graham Brown slop.
Kirk has a cigar.
Kirk is a funny, surprise-faced man.
Woodsy Allen.
Woodsy Allen and naked people. WTF.
Dignity.
Baby bird lass from Big Bang Theory. Full-length purple dress.
Snowball 2.
Pictionary 5. Dots of cornstarch.
Relegated to backbook furniture.
Both hands on his chest.
Where did the Hibberts go?
Could not be more simple to end.
Cornstarch.
Slightly raising her head. Go on.
That's a door.
That's a door.
That's a door.
3/4 back of Maud shot.
The maison derrière.
That's a door.
The end.
You got the kids singing. The end. The end. We did it. Who would have thought it? Episode 34, aka season 4, episode 4. All the fours. 4 is a very unlucky number in Japan.
Is 4 the one where you can't... There's a hotel number that you don't get, isn't there? I like it. 4.
No.
4.
There's no 4 parking, so lucky. We just check that and make sure I'm not completely wrong. Yeah, that's right.
Unlucky for some. The Ford car.
So in the Wikipedia, they talk about Chinese buildings that don't have 13th or 14th or 4th floor. But of course, that just means that the 4th floor is 1 floor down. You're not fooling anyone. Death doesn't get fooled that easily.
No, it isn't Final Destination.
It's interesting that we finished with death just as we started with death. And
Yeah, I'm confident.
so there did this entire episode.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.